Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you've joined us this morning. We got a couple of special events, we'll call it, here on the program this morning. First off, we're going to be hearing from Metaphor, another song to highlight the upcoming concert on Saturday at the Horseheads High School with the Crystal Chords and the Mark Twain Chorus. So that'll be coming up a little bit later on. Also, in the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking with Corning Mayor Bill Boland. I know you can't really see it there, but I've got my gaffer tie on in honor. I'll have to put that pin on that he gave me when we first kicked off the program. So we'll be talking with him. We've got a lot to cover this morning. Some breaking stories. We'll talk more about the fallout from the Signal app. We also have quite a few things here about Doge, New York State issues as well. Let's get right to it. A comment that came in late last night from Rick. It says, "Good morning, Frank." Well, good morning. Senator Bennett, and let me put a little disclaimer here, and Rick may watch the program later, may tape it, something like that, because there's a confusion either on my part or on your part, Rick. But it says Senator Bennett, a Republican, has a very unique perspective on recent happenings. Refreshing to hear a Republican tell the truth and not hide from Trump. Good man there, good man. I searched because I wasn't sure of your reference. The only Senator Bennett that I can find, unless you're maybe talking about it at a state level, but as a United States Senator, is Michael Bennett. And he is no Republican. Michael Bennett is a Democrat who actually recently, if you want to talk about him telling the truth, he had said in reference to Chuck Schumer, and you may recall I brought it up on the program at the time, he said people have to, and I'm paraphrasing, people have to know when it's time to step away, meaning Chuck Schumer from leadership. So that was refreshing, but I don't think that's what you're referencing, because if we're talking about the same Senator Bennett, which I believe we are, he is a Democrat from Colorado. The reason I believe you're speaking of Senator Michael Bennett is because during that exchange yesterday between him and CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and this is in reference to the Signal app, saying it's an embarrassment, you need to do better. This sloppiness, this incompetence, this disrespect for our intelligence agencies and the personnel who work for them is entirely unacceptable. So I'm guessing that is what you're referencing, but again, not a Republican, a Democrat from Colorado. We are going to talk about that in just a quick moment. But first, breaking early this morning, late last night, depending, the appeals court has denied Trump administration's bid to pause the ruling forcing federal agencies to reinstate fired workers. Coming from the New York Post, a federal appeals court on Wednesday denied an attempt by the Trump administration to pause a lower court ruling, forcing government agencies to reinstate thousands of employees who were fired last month. In a 2-1 ruling, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit refused the administration's bid to stay U.S. District Judge William Alsup's March 13th preliminary injunction, which ordered the Departments of Veterans Affairs, Defense, Energy, Interior, Agriculture, and Treasury to, quote, immediately offer all probationary employees terminated on or about February 13th their jobs back. Now, Judges Barry Silverman and Ann D. Alba, appointees of former President Bill Clinton and Joe Biden, respectively, ruled in favor of leaving Alsup's injunction in place, while Judge Bridget Bade, an appointee of President Trump, dissented. Quote, appellants have demonstrated neither that they are sufficiently likely to succeed on the merits of this appeal, nor that they will suffer irreparable harm for complying with the preliminary injunction, the majority opinion has stated. So there's a lot of work to be done when it comes to judges and Trump getting through some of his orders through the judges. So there's going to be a lot of lawsuits, a lot of files, a lot of back and forth. But that was just an update. Another update from something, and this was very where a very good conversation starter during yesterday's program. We were talking about the anti-Semitic, anti-American protests on college campuses. We're not going to talk about it extensively, but we know that Columbia kind of caved, if you will, to the list of demands that the Trump administration put forward if they wanted their $400 million in federal money, taxpayer money. So they said that they would comply with Trump's order, and then we learned that behind the scenes, the interim president was saying very different things, basically saying there was no mask ban, trying to ease the mind of the faculty because the faculty has been radicalized as well. We talked about that a lot yesterday and, well, for a long time, actually. And it's very often the faculty that is encouraging and participating in these anti-Semitic protests. So they were upset with administration. The administration said, no, don't worry. We just want that $400 million. And they didn't say this directly, but it was a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We want that $400 million, so we're not going to really comply. We just told them we're going to comply. Well, Education Secretary Linda McMahon was asked by a reporter, what happens if it emerges that Columbia is not meeting the demands and complying with the agreements that they said they would? McMahon replied, my answer is pretty simple. They have to abide and comply with the terms that we have set down. And we've talked with them and they've agreed to it. Now, again, this coming off the heels of Monday, a protest where students wore masks just to not comply with this list of demands from Trump. And I believe it was on Tuesday, but don't quote me, where faculty and students either skipped class or went to class in those masks. So I didn't have to do a lot of research, but some people, astute viewers, were sending in various amounts that it was believed was given to some of these elite universities. So I went online. I said, we need to see the numbers, because many people calling yesterday for, not even calling, asking why would Columbia University, which is just one university in New York, receive $400 million in tax-paying dollars? Why would that be? Especially when we see the radicalization on college campuses. And we talked about it yesterday as well, that it was impressive. Someone had referenced it's impressive that Trump won even with all the biased media and their full-out attack mode during the campaign. But it was also impressive that he was able to not just beat the media, beat Hollywood, beat pop culture, beat academia. So why, when you have anti-Semitic protests on college campuses and the faculty not only encouraging and allowing, participating in this harassment of sometimes violence against Jewish students, why would they receive this kind of money? Well, wait till you see the kind of money they're receiving. Ivy League schools in 2024 received $6.4 billion in your money and my money. That's America's 8 Ivy League schools, approximately $6.4 billion. Financial statements from Columbia University show that it received $1.3 billion in federal funding. This is in last fiscal year. The University of Pennsylvania received $1.8 billion, and Yale University received $898.7 million. Now, we've talked in the past about the endowments that some of these schools have, mind-boggling numbers. So why they need this funding. And also, it's hard to be lectured by some of these universities and these professors saying how difficult it is for students to pay to go to these schools when they do have these endowments that could create amazing scholarships. But let's look down the road to Cornell, because that was what someone had asked. And I think someone had thrown out a number yesterday, and I don't have that number in front of me, but we've got the cold hard facts right here. Cornell University received $825.5 million last year. $825.5 million Cornell received. Now, since they are so close to us in our backyard, we know about the radicalization well before the anti-Semitic protests that has happened at Cornell University. They have a reputation for those far left stances and protests. But just to continue on, Harvard University received $686.5 million, Princeton $455 million, Brown University more than $254 million, and Dartmouth $141.9 million. Again, the total for the 8 Ivy League schools of tax-paying dollars, $6.4 billion. Now, as of 2024, Columbia University has an endowment worth $14.8 billion. The University of Pennsylvania's endowment, $22.3 billion. Yale's endowment, just growing here, folks, $41.4 billion. And Harvard has amassed an endowment of over $53.2 billion. Those are just the ones that Fox News reporting on. So, begging for the $400 million while signaling that they're not really going to comply behind closed doors, begging for the $400 million while they have, again, Columbia University has an endowment worth $14.8 billion. And think of that money at Harvard, which is the top of the list, $53.2 billion. The University of Pennsylvania, with an endowment of $22.3 billion, said, and I quote, federal funding freezes and cancellations jeopardize life-saving and life-improving research, the loss of which will be felt by society and individuals far beyond our campus for years to come. Understandably, we are hearing concerns not only from scientists affected directly, but more broadly from students and young faculty embarking on careers in research. It's hard to feel sorry for this lack of funding from the federal government with endowments like that. But again, if you miss those numbers, you can reach out and I can pass them along to you. But Columbia University receiving last year $1.3 billion from you and I while sitting on endowment of $14.8 billion. Okay, when we come back, we are going to talk about the Signal app. So you won't want to miss that. Feel free to weigh in at any time. We do have some New York State issues. Chuck Schumer still in the spotlight, going on kind of a, I wouldn't say an apology tour, but kind of a save my leadership position tour. We'll be talking about that as well. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Tune in to our early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. While the is being poured, and the donuts are hot, catch Big Fox Morning News for local news in your area at 5 and 5:30 a.m. only on WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Big Fox News, Corning.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. We have a few comments from viewers. Are those endowments in addition to tuition? Yes, absolutely. So the endowments are kind of, well, those are the donations and gifts that have been given by alumni, other organizations through the years, and it's normally saved almost like in a savings account, and they invest it to generate wealth, to grow their wealth. An endowment, a savings account is kind of a simple way to put it. But yes, it's to raise more money. That has nothing to do with tuition. The tuition numbers are not mentioned there. I'm not sure how much is made off of tuition, but those are two very separate things. Endowments, gifts, and the like given from alumni and others, maybe some leftover that they had from the federal government. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. TikTok has until April 5th to comply with Trump or they are out of America. Yes, but Trump did hint at easing China tariffs to get the TikTok deal done, saying maybe I'll give them a little reduction. With respect to TikTok, and China is going to have to play a role in that, possibly in the form of an approval maybe. And I think they'll do that. Maybe I'll give them a little reduction in tariffs or something to get it done. Vice President J.D. Vance has said he expects the general terms of an agreement that resolves the ownership of the social media platform to be reached by April the 5th. Also, speaking of tariffs, before we go on to the Signal app, this coming out yesterday evening, Trump has announced 25% tariffs on all foreign-made cars, impacting roughly half of all vehicles sold in America, arguing it would boost domestic manufacturing. Speaking from the Oval Office, Trump said this is going to lead to the construction of a lot of plants, meaning to build cars domestically. We'll effectively be charging a 25% tariff, but if you build your car in the United States, there is no tariff. White House Staff Secretary Will Scarf told Trump that the actions were projected to raise $100 billion in annual revenue, though analysis has suggested it may also sharply reduce import volume. A Trump administration official later said that the new tariff also would apply to auto parts and that the fees would be layered on top of current tariffs of 2.5% on or 25% on cars and 25% on light trucks. All right. So thank you, Mark, for passing that along. Gave me an excuse to bring up that tariff deal. All right, so yesterday, and this is the media's narrative, you could really see it coming a mile away if you were watching the confirmation hearings. But during the hearing yesterday, they were suggesting, this is in regard to the Signal app, that was Pete Hegseth drunk? This is the narrative that they're going to play out extensively. They are going to paint him as a drunk because this is what the media does. Democrats playing right along into their hands. Representative Jimmy Gomez delivered what the New York Post is calling a low blow yesterday by questioning whether Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was drunk when he texted details about the Houthi strike in the now infamous leaked Signal chat. Hegseth has vehemently denied struggling with alcohol and even promised not to drink while serving as the head of the Pentagon. But because, just like we saw with Jasmine Crockett, calling Texas Governor Greg Abbott Governor Hot Wheels, the low blow is really all they have, as they are scratching gravel, seeing that even CNN admitting that Trump, the approval of where the country is headed, is skyrocketing. That's why you have so much talk about change in leadership. That's why Chuck Schumer is on his Please Don't Get Rid of Me tour. So they go for the low blow with Democrat Representative Jimmy Gomez saying the main person who is involved in the thread that a lot of people want to talk to is Secretary of Defense Hegseth. And a lot of questions were brought up regarding his drinking habit in his confirmation hearing. To your knowledge, do you know whether Pete Hegseth had been drinking before he leaked classified information? Now, Mr. Gomez did an important job for the Democrats there, because then that gave the media the opportunity to run with this, splashed all over the headlines. Was he drinking? I mean, they'd even suggested and this is on social media, that when he was, where was he speaking at? But it was at a press conference, and they said, well, that water he's drinking looks like it's tinted brown. Was he drinking at the press conference? See, they're going to try to paint him as nothing short of Otis from the Andy Griffith Show. And that was started, working the long game here. That started when, at the hearings, they could ask about this, and some anonymous former co-worker said that he drank. So this gave them the opportunity so that they can use that, not on substance, not on the job that he is doing, which you would think right now with the infamous scandal going on, that they would be focused on that, because the media has been running with it nonstop. But nope, they're going to have to resort to the low blows. John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, was very agitated by that question, saying, "No, I'm going to answer that. I think that's an offensive line of questioning. The answer is no. You don't want to focus on the good work that the CIA is doing, that the intelligence community is doing." Well, Gomez, not wanting to hear that, cut him off and reclaimed his time. Now, the California Democrat then peddled dubious accusations that Hegseth had drank alcohol during a press conference after a NATO meeting in February. Now, if you told during your confirmation hearing that you told those people that you were not going to drink, how foolish does Mr. Gomez have to be to think that this photo of him from NATO would be him drinking at a press conference after a NATO event? The viral image that online showed Hegseth drinking a brown tinted substance at the press conference podium, but then higher quality videos of the press conference showed that the liquid was actually clear, that the tint came from his hand. So Gomez, wanting to continue along this narrative, so number one, he'll get a lot of donations from the far left. That's number one, first and foremost, to help his campaign. But also he knows he'll get a lot of media coverage from this, because they'll show Gomez while they then try to insinuate that Hegseth could have been drinking by using Gomez's question. That's how the media operates. That's how they work. If Gomez starts it, they can run with it and never have to say. It's like when they use some people are saying when they're questioning a Republican, well, who are these people? Well, in this case, they can point back to Gomez, and he's kind of who they quote unquote cite in creating this narrative. Gomez said this was a question that's on top of minds of every American. He stood in front of a podium in Europe holding a drink. So of course we want to know if his performance was compromised. So again, there he is painting a false narrative, saying, well, the American people want to know. He was drinking. So see, there he assumes that is exactly what that happened. Not even assumes. He's presenting a lie as factual, and he knows that. But again, just continuing this narrative on and on. You can read these people like a book, but the media will run with it. So this is more in preparation, so you are aware, if you're not already, which I'm sure you are, that is going to be the message here on out anytime Hegseth does something that they don't like. Ratcliffe was later given time to respond to Gomez's line of questioning, saying, we're getting questions about whether or not someone has drinking habits. And, I just wish in an annual threats hearing where the American people want to hear about threats, that's what we would be talking about. There you are. So Jimmy Gomez, Representative Jimmy Gomez, then gives The Hill the opportunity to say, and this is the headline, Jimmy Gomez, question about Pete Hegseth drinking, draws John Ratcliffe's fury. You see what's important about that headline? The headline assumes or puts forth the idea that Hegseth is drinking. So Jimmy Gomez's question about Pete Hegseth's drinking, as if it's known that Pete Hegseth is drinking. This is why the media is so destructive and why the media is so good at dividing us as a nation. And that's why I think it was Ken's point, but I apologize if it wasn't Ken's point, saying yesterday that it is really a miracle that Trump could overcome the nasty media and their nonstop coverage trying to demean him to win the presidency, not just this time, but back in 2016. We'll continue to talk about Signal. That's not going to be all that we talk about, okay? Don't worry. We've got a lot of New York State issues as well. And as I said, in the 7 o'clock hour, we are going to be talking with Corning Mayor Bill Bolin. That's why I have my Corning pin on and my gaffer tie on. Stay with us. We got to take a short break. I'm running late. We're getting on tangents this morning. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Tune in to our early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Now is the best. Purchase your swimming pool at Hustleson's at our annual spring pool sale and get on the installation list early. Save $500 to $1,000 in every 2025 installed gold or diamond pool package. Have Hustleson's expert installation crews install it for you or do it yourself. Either way, the warranty is the same and enjoy the savings. Hustleson's also offers 0% interest financing options up to 5 years. Save on chlorine tablets, solar covers, steps, electric pool cleaners, and more. This spring pool sale will end March 31st, so come in early for the best selection. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustleson's.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app. Your teams, your highlights, your scores. Get more of what you want. To the end zone. Stream your teams live. It's free with your pay TV subscription. Grab your Fox Sports app today.
The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horsets. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A couple comments from viewers. The tariffs won't hurt the foreign car makers too much as most of them have plants here. Toyota, for instance. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Sue Gomez for defamation of character, and that's in reference to Representative Gomez suggesting, and actually not even insinuating, almost declaring a fact in the way it's worded and how the media's coverage of it continues, that Hegseth was drinking, when there is no evidence of that whatsoever. I should clarify that point. Trump suggests that Signal could have been defective. I don't know that Signal works. I think Signal could be defective, to be honest with you. It could be a defective platform, and we're going to have to find that answer. We learned that to find that answer, they have tapped Elon Musk. Elon Musk is helping lead the investigation into the Signal chat leak involving top national security leaders and the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. That's still the biggest question that I have. Of all people, how is it a man who has been so adamantly opposed to Trump? The National Security Council, the White House's counsel office, and also, yes, Elon Musk's team will be leading the investigation into the Signal leak. Elon Musk has offered to put his technical experts on this to figure out how this number was inadvertently added to the chat, again, to take responsibility and ensure this can never happen again. That was White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt. Now, I want you to take this with a very big grain of salt, because you'll recall this during the first Trump administration, where certain outlets, we could even point to the Atlantic with Goldberg, would use these anonymous sources, and very often it got to the point where you'd question whether or not there was even a source, let alone at what level, what were these sources coming from? Were they really giving you an inside look to the White House? And I believe 9 times out of 10, if not more, they were not. But then when you see something like this happen, and Goldberg being asked to be a part of that signal chat, then you wonder if there isn't some sabotage going on behind the scenes. But according to far left Politico, they have anonymous sources that said that even though Trump gave Mike Waltz a vote of confidence in the public, it wasn't as smooth behind the scenes. Trump was mad and suspicious that Waltz had Atlantic editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg's number saved in his phone in the first place. And I can understand that suspicion if you look at the first term of the president, how many leaks there were, how many anonymous sources. It was nonstop, especially at the very beginning, but nonstop the whole 4 years. And it made that the news coverage. And Goldberg specifically peddled in that. So I can understand giving that vote of confidence in public, but behind the scenes being raging mad. So again, Politico reporting that Trump was mad and suspicious why Jeffrey Goldberg's number was in Waltz's phone anyway. This is according to 3 people familiar with the situation who were granted anonymity to discuss private conversations. A 4th person said the president was also particularly perturbed by the embarrassing nature of the episode. Quote, the president was, we'll just say, mad that Waltz could be so stupid, the person said. A Mike Waltz invited Goldberg to the chat, according to the Atlantic. But by Tuesday afternoon, the 2 men had made a show of smoothing things over, and the White House was closing ranks around Waltz. Trump conducted brief interviews with both NBC News and Fox News, pledging to stand behind his national security advisor. 2 top Trump spokespeople suggested in posts on X the national security hawks were colluding with the media to make the issue bigger than it actually was, and Waltz is attending a meeting of Trump's ambassadors Tuesday afternoon. Quote, there's a lot of journalists in the city who have made big names for themselves making up lies. This one in particular, I've never met, don't know, never communicated with, and we are looking into and reviewing how the heck we got into this room, Waltz said during the meeting. Trump followed up by calling Waltz a very good man and suggested that he had been unfairly attacked. Still, several Trump allies cautioned this may not be the end of Waltz's troubles. One of them, who, like others, was granted anonymity to discuss the sensitive matter, said the incident has strained Waltz's relationship with Trump's inner circle, and I could understand why. Not, first of all, concerned of why or how did that phone number get in the chat, but also, was it an aide? Was it someone that he had hired that is now trying to sabotage? Because remember, Politico, the same that I'm reading these anonymous sources from, that's why I said take them with a grain of salt, but the same Politico was the one that released that article right after the election, but before Trump was sworn in, saying, hey, those working behind the scenes tried to destroy this presidency, tried to destroy his agenda, make sure it doesn't go through. That it's issues like this that would at least make you question whether or not that is happening behind the scenes. So enough on that. You know the history of what has happened. Do you think that he will last, Mike Waltz? Now, Trump's hatred of the Atlantic is one of the reasons that he's so angry, according to these anonymous sources. The president has long held a grudge against the magazine for an article in which it leaned on anonymous sources to report that Trump had called Americans who died in war, quote, suckers and losers, which is just, and the person who wrote that article was editor-in-chief Goldberg. That's why, if it was a random reporter from some newspaper, you'd say, well, that was weird. But when it's Goldberg, it's when it raises those concerns. A third Trump ally granted anonymity, called the issue serious, but echoed the administration's message that the way it has been characterized in the media is exaggerated. I know we talked about this yesterday, and I'm running late, but I do want to talk about the fact that Jeffrey Goldberg says this is a threat to national security and then releases that exact threat to national security in the media. You heard my thoughts yesterday that if put in that situation, I think you say, I'm going to report that this happened. But you should know that I'm in this chat right now, and you should look to see who else is in this chat that could put soldiers in harm's way, could complicate the mission. But of course, that would be taking the high road, and Mr. Goldberg not known for doing that. And that's why he not only published the original story, is now publishing more information to keep the story in the headline, to keep punching at Trump, Hegseth, and Waltz. Few last-minute issues on this, but do you think Waltz lasts it? But we got to take a break. Running late. Stay with us. We'll be right back, frankly speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Do it all with Steel Battery. Power up with free extra battery deals on select Steel tools. Shop in-store and online.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDC. Beautiful view of Market Street. Thank you to Boss Security, giving them a call today. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Comment from a viewer. Morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Have you noticed how the Democrats have taken on the very issues that Trump had ran on, but had clearly run on a different agenda during Biden's fiasco? For example, they're now insinuating that they want secure borders, public safety, and so on. But somehow they can waffle on any issue, and their short memory constituents suck it up as a given fact that this is what their politicians stand for. Yes, you are seeing, well, for one example, and it's just kind of more of a local, not local, statewide issue, is Richie Torres, who wants to primary Governor Hochul. He was Mr. Defund the Police. Now he's Mr. Public Safety. That may be one example. Back to the Signal app scandal. Paul Krugman, you know the name Paul Krugman, he says incompetent or evil. Trump's people can be both and are both. I don't want to go through this. This is one of those op-eds where they think they go overboard with what they say. Paul Krugman, no surprise, overboard, dramatic, using a lot of cuss words. but incompetent or evil. Speaking of cuss words, Democrat Senator Tammy Duckworth calls for Pete Hegseth to resign, that he's a blanking liar. This is so clearly classified info he recklessly leaked that could have gotten our pilots killed. He needs to resign in disgrace immediately. If Republicans won't join us in holding the Trump administration accountable, then they are complicit in this dangerous and likely criminal breach of our national security. Would you say that Mr. Goldberg is then in breach of our national security? If he is releasing this information and doing so to keep the story alive, to keep his name in the media, didn't he have a responsibility to keep this close to the vest and say, I have this information, this is a threat, the administration needs to look into how this would happen, but then not have to release that information? Now, I've heard the argument that some of the media have given on that is, well, Trump is trying to vilify Goldberg, and others are saying it's not classified, so he had to release it to say, look, I was right. Well, I don't know. There's sometimes taking the high road. It wasn't as if the media wasn't going to run with his story no matter what. But now he likes the attention. He likes dragging it out, and I'll use the term, leak the story out little by little. Senator Mark Kelly, who recently traded in his Tesla for a Tahoe, said Wednesday on MSNBC's Deadline that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth should resign over this. I think I'm assuming that's Waltz, Mike made a careless mistake here. If you go back and you look at what was shared on this on Signal in this text chain, it wasn't him that was sharing what I view as classified information, but even beyond classified. This is the most sensitive information that the Department of Defense has hours before conducting a strike that was shared by the Secretary of Defense. We're 60 days in, and this is not the first thing he has screwed up, meaning Hegseth. On his first trip to Germany, he was saying stuff that was inconsistent with our foreign policy that was causing our allies to really consider our relationship. You know, things that were really concerning. So this isn't the first instance of this. I imagine there's others that we don't even know about. And it's because they put somebody in charge of the Defense Department that is unqualified for the job. He should have never been considered for this position. It's unfortunate that the president nominated him for this. And I think what's really incredibly unfortunate for our country is that the United States Senate confirmed him to that position. Adam Schiff was on CNN's Out Front, and he said there will be no accountability in his administration. He isn't going to hold people responsible. He doesn't want to fire people. He doesn't even want to talk about it. He wants to put this off as another witch hunt, another hoax. It's kind of to go to deflection. Don't look at me, whatever you do, America. I'm not responsible. That's just going to breed further mistakes. We can't have any confidence this is going to be rectified if all of these people on that chat are basically saying there's nothing to see here. It is the sign of both the inexperience and incompetence of a lot of these people. Hegseth, way out of his depth. He passed by a single vote. That vote was J.D. Vance in the Senate coming in to break the tie. That has not aged well. But more than that, I hate that term. That has not aged well. Anyway. Well, more than that, I look at someone like Ratcliffe, who does have at least some modicum of experience, and nowhere in that chat does he say, hey, people, we shouldn't be talking about this on a commercial app. Tulsi Gabbard had no experience. She has no business being there either. But for Ratcliffe, it was even more inexcusable because he knows better than this. But none of them are willing to really contradict the misuse of power. They really seem like they're drunk with power. And there's a kind of arrogance about what we witness in this chat. Arrogance towards our allies, arrogance towards national security protocols that should be followed, just incompetence and arrogance, which is a dangerous mix for our country. Now, Miranda Devine, quickly, said Mike Waltz's Signal Gate blunder is a hard lesson to be learned for Trump's winning team. There's no getting around the fact that it was a blunder. In soccer terms, it was an own goal, a totally unnecessary screw-up that set back the Trump team. But the team is still winning, and the opposition is still in total disarray and fighting among themselves. And we're going to get to that later on in the program. But Miranda Devine makes a very good point there that it was a mistake. But you've got to remember, and what the media is trying to do here is to say, well, this is the end of the Trump administration. Essentially, it's going to be lame duck now because you're going to have Republicans pushing back after this blunder because they're projecting and hoping that will happen. It's hard to believe that of all people on planet Earth, it was Jeffrey Goldberg, America's most rabidly anti-Trump journalist, who could have been inadvertently patched into a sensitive Signal group chat of the National Security Cabinet discussing sensitive plans for military strikes against the Houthis in Yemen. But that's what President Trump's National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, is telling us. He claimed Tuesday that he has never met, don't know, never communicated with the editor-in-chief. Of course, swampy Washington quickly unearthed a photo of Waltz standing right in front of Goldberg in the French embassy in 2021. Waltz probably meets a lot of swamp dwellers. And since his wife, Julia Negerwart, is a distinguished fellow at the Atlantic Council, and he has told Trump it was one of his people who added Goldberg to the Signal chat group. One of the screenshots Goldberg published in the Atlantic shows it was Waltz's Signal account, tagged as admin, that sent him a Signal invite on March 11th and then added him to that chat. He has said he takes full responsibility for the error and admitted he built the Signal group. Laura Ingram asked the perfect question of Waltz, saying, how did a Trump-hating editor of the Atlantic end up on your Signal chat? And that's when Waltz suggested that he's not a conspiracy theorist. We mentioned that to you yesterday. Now, Miranda Devine said his excuse is not as crazy as it sounds. It happened to me last week when I received a call from someone named Mike, but it was mislabeled on my phone with the name of a different Mike, causing a moment of confusion. Syncing errors with Apple contacts have been reported in Apple forums and tech articles for years, but it doesn't explain how Goldberg's number got on Waltz's or his staffer's phone. Waltz must have checked the contact list and shouldn't have known whether the unknown number on the group chat was associated with another name. That doesn't need an Elon Musk forensic deep dive. But something doesn't add up, and you can't blame the Trump administration for being paranoid after all the deep state ops against the president in the first term. This smells a lot like the Russian hoax, the Steele dossier, the phony impeachment, the Dirty 51, etc. One thing is for sure, Trump won't sacrifice Waltz to appease the media after the ambush in his first term of General Michael Flynn. The president has learned that you never give an inch to the forces of darkness because they are insatiable. They'll never stop. So he's standing by Waltz, calling him a good man who has learned his lesson. It's fair to say, however, that Waltz's colleagues will never trust him again. He's embarrassed them all. So, for Democrats to be hyperventilating about operational security and intelligence failures is laughable, considering what they allowed without complaint under Joe Biden. You know, the Chinese spy balloons, Afghanistan withdrawal. In any case, Goldberg and his fellows in the resistance media have over-egged the pudding. I've never heard that term before. Over-egged the pudding so much that they have destroyed their own credibility. And that's why it makes you wonder what is happening here. So that is Miranda Devine. I thought she raised a good point, but we have to take a break because I'm running really late. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. Tune in to our early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Are you having trouble hearing your TV? Or listening to conversations in loud spaces? Then it might be time to consider Nano hearing aids. Don't mistake Nanos for cheap amplifiers. Nanos are FDA-registered OTC hearing aids, which means no more having to go to a doctor and spend thousands. Nano hearing aids are now offering $100 off through this special TV offer. Order right now and get 2 CIC rechargeable hearing aids for only $297. And if you're not happy, return them for a full refund.
Anyone anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here. With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I have to take another short break here in just a moment, but let's read some comments. Something needs to be done about the mainstream media's propaganda machine. And I would agree. On a different note, I have to wonder why there have been no counter-protests against the anti-Jewish pro-terrorist protesters. There has been some. As well, one thing, it's kind of tough to always have counter protests when those people are protesting nonstop. But remember when I think it was Ilhan Omar was so upset because a counter protest group was showing, this was when there was the encampment, they were showing on big screens the videos of the horrific attack on October 7th. And she called it, I can't remember what it was. She suggested that it was wrong for them to show that, even though those protesters were essentially pro-Hamas, anti-Jew. So there have been some effective counter-protests, but I understand number one, not as many because they're not career protesters. Number two, you're also not going to get as much coverage in the media by that. Okay, don't forget, folks, I know this is a big topic, that NYSEG is holding that, quote, community connection event, the public forum, though not a town hall, today at the Big Flats American Legion from 4 to 7 p.m. Customers can meet with NYSEG representatives on a first-come, first-served basis. Now, if you recall, yesterday we had mentioned that Senator Tom O'Mara said that his office has heard from over 300 constituents in the past 2 months alone about NYSEG. So number one, I hope that you are able to make it out at the Big Flats American Legion from 4 to 7. If you do, I would love to hear what your thoughts on this public forum are. So please keep that in mind. If you decide to go today, please let me know your thoughts. Let's take another short break. Then we'll be catching up, and we'll wrap up hour number one of Frankly Speaking. Keep those comments coming in. Keep those waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
One of the I like most about being a mortgage loan officer is helping people make dreams come true.
The most satisfying part is seeing people succeed in accomplishing the purchase of a home.
Whether it's refinancing for a lower monthly payment, a lower interest rate, or to tap in your home's equity.
Whether you're buying your first home or looking to refinance, First Heritage will be here to help.
My name is Cindy.
My name is Tracy.
My name is Peter.
My name is Deb.
We are here to guide you.
Ramshed Chilson Wilcox Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram.
Buy a new 2025 Ram Quad Cab Night Edition for $39,995. That's right, save $10,000. Offer ends March 31st.
Chilson Wilcox, selling cars a different way, the right way.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. How is the planning going in preparation? Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, wrapping up hour number one. In the next hour, we are scheduled to talk with Corning Mayor Bill Bolin, so don't miss that. And in the next hour, we'll also have a new song to play for you from Metaphor. They're part of the Crystal Chords, which will be playing that concert, is that the right word for it? Having that performance this Saturday at Horseheads High School. We'll tell you all about that when we play the song. We talked with Joe Barlow earlier in the week and had a great song by the Staff Meeting Quartet. All right, comment from a viewer. Wait a minute. Let's look at the signal issue for what it is. Jeffrey Goldberg is allegedly an American. It isn't as if Hamas or whatever other scum was privy to that chat. Yeah, like an enemy. Sure. So given how Goldberg has handled the issue, I would have to assume that he is, like his comrades, anti-American. Well, are you saying, I think what you mean, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what you're, when you say handling the issue, what the point I've been kind of making is he did not have to release this what they're calling classified information. This classified information that is a threat to national security. If it is, why are you releasing it? Again, I think, there's the mayor. I think you could easily say that I'm going to report on it, but not break it. Let's take our end of the hour break because we had the mayor in the studio. I'm all decked out with all my Corning gear. Got my pin, I got my gaffer tie. All right, we're going to take our break. Hour number 2, mere moments away. Stay with us.
Richard Seeley. I was in the U.S. Navy from 54 to 56.
Jim Morgan, U.S. Navy Air, 1952 to 1956.
I really appreciate the luncheons, mainly because you get the chance to talk to these guys and see their experiences.
And you get, people looking out for you. Because if you don't show up for dinner, they want to know why.
Tune in to our early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Now is the best. Purchase your swimming pool at Hustleson's our annual spring pool sale and get on the installation list early. Save $500 to $1,000 in every 2025 installed gold or diamond pool package. Have Hustleson's expert installation crews install it for you or do it yourself. Either way, the warranty is the same and enjoy the savings. Hustleson's also offers 0% interest financing options up to 5 years. Save on chlorine tablets, solar covers, steps, electric pool cleaners, and more. This spring pool sale will end March 31st, so come in early for the best selection. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustleson's.
Every day, Judge Ebony K. Williams presides.
Untrue, Your Honor.
What, you're going to have your turn.
Is another day when right prevails over wrong.
I can tell what happened to you, sir, because I was born at night, not last night. The only
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Do it all with Steel Battery. Power up with free extra battery deals on select Steel tools. Shop in-store and online.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDC. And we are back with Frankly Speaking. That's our Boss Security roof cam overlooking historic Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. And in that studio, we have Mayor Bill Boland. Good to see you.
Good morning, Frank. Great to be with you, as always.
Yes, it's been a little bit. I've got, as I said, wrong one. All decked out.
Got your city pin on.
Look at my gaffer tie.
Flying the colors.
I am, that's for sure. Well, we've got a lot to talk about. I had some people reach out, and that's why I'm so glad you could be on the show. Could you give us an update on the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, first of all, to state that we're actually updating the comprehensive
plan.
Right,
yeah, I'm
which
sorry.
is
That's a better way to word it.
Over 20 years old. And the purpose of the comprehensive plan is to develop goals and visions for the future that guide official decision making. It helps us make set priorities because there's only so much money in the pot, and so we have to have a means to guide us, to help us set priorities. And it's really a 20,000-foot look and vision about what we want our city to look like over the next 15 years. It was really very important. Around the table in the committee are all the stakeholders that are involved in our community life, centered on public input. And to that end, we've had a survey up for a couple of months, and we held 3 public hearings.
Looked like they were well attended too.
Well attended. The consultant did an amazingly good job. These weren't just poster boards with a couple sentences on. This is an in-depth presentation to the public about what these individual issues are about.
Were you surprised by any of the people? Because I saw that you could make suggestions about what they wanted to see in courting. Have you been surprised by any of them?
No, I think not. I think our consultant, I think our committee has really done a pretty good job at taking a look at the breadth of the issues that present to our community now and in the future.
What were you hearing from the people the most, would you say? Not necessarily needs, but
I think the future of our aquatic facilities, our pools. I think that's going to be a very extensive discussion as we go. Is and has been. I think some of the hot buttons for me that I enjoy is, the Civic Center Plaza is prime real estate. If you take a look at Market Street and extend it, down the pathway behind the Radisson and enter into that for future economic development, that's prime real estate.
I couldn't agree more.
And I don't believe that the City Hall needs to be there. In fact, our vision is a consolidated public safety complex.
Oh, interesting.
And so, if you take a look at the fire department, that is an old building. It's not in the greatest shape. You take a look at our police department. They are operating in what amounts to a hobbit hole.
Yeah, that's true.
And then City Hall does not need to be where it is. So
interesting.
Compile all those together. So our future, our vision is for that consolidated public.
And wasn't it in the past that Market Street did reach out that way?
Exactly.
Yeah. So this isn't unprecedented.
Exactly not.
So what's the time frame on the update to the comprehensive plan?
We look forward for it to be done in about 4 months. We're about halfway.
Okay.
We've gotten a draft. So, and by the way, I should say, not only through these public hearings and the survey, but every one of our comprehensive plan meetings is a public meeting. It is open to the public and available for public comment. So I'd really encourage anybody who has an interest in this, go to our city website and you'll see the schedule there.
Well, and I've got to say, when I saw the coverage of the meetings that you had, I was encouraging to see people getting active in their community.
Absolutely. These public hearings that we had, people were engaged, and there were a lot of, the attendance was really good. So we were very pleased to hear that. It just shows you that, again, our public is engaged in what our future city will look like.
And we had a great interview a couple weeks ago with John Buren from Chemung County, and he's on the legislature. And he was saying, it's kind of interesting having you on, because he was saying how important it is, and there's so many towns and cities that don't have a comprehensive plan, and how really that puts them on kind of their heels.
Yeah, and it does. And on a really practical level, when you're going for state grants or even federal grants, they look to see whether what you're asking is incorporated into your comprehensive plan, because it is exactly that. You are planning, so you've given thought to what you want to do as a community.
And it's not a rushed process. You've really put the time and effort into this.
It's about a year and a half process. So it's deliberative, and
well, that's what needs to be done, right? Because you don't want to rush something like this.
Definitely not. If you're doing it every 20 years, you want to make it right.
So there's still more events coming up?
Yeah.
For people to attend?
Actually, I think we're pretty much done with the public input process.
Gotcha.
The survey was taken down, I think, last week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
but it was up there for a couple months.
Okay, so you've got some other exciting things going on.
We do.
A lot going on. So let's kind of jump through them. You know I'm always a sucker for sister cities.
I do.
Now, do you have an upcoming trip, or are they coming here?
No, they're not coming here this year. We had the students here last year. It is a program for both adult and student visits. So this year, very exciting, my wife and I will be traveling to our sister city in Kakagawa, Japan. And we've had that relationship since 1989.
Wow.
So we're going to stay in the home of the deputy mayor.
Oh, how nice.
Who's a baseball fan, so we'll share that. It's going to be a wonderful trip, May 7th to the 22nd.
I just learned how to say San Giovanni. Now I have to learn how to say Kakagawa.
There you go. That
wasn't too bad.
That was good. And, linked into that, Frank, we have the Rotary Cherry Blossom Trail down in Denison Park.
Of course.
And that's going to, depending on the weather, you can't control that.
Right.
But we look to mid-April. Those trees are now 4 years old, and they were really great the first year.
Yeah.
Better every year since, and we really look forward to be a beautiful, beautiful display.
So how long are you in Japan?
May 7th to the 22nd.
You've got to be looking. Wow, that's a long time.
That's a long time. Well, we're going to stay in Kakagawa for about 4 days.
Gotcha. I love the Sister Cities programs because I do think it's an important part of communities like that because there's such a bond when they come here and vice versa, isn't there?
It is, and I mean that person-to-person contact is irreplaceable. And when our students go there, they're introduced to another culture, which for a young person is just invaluable in terms of their personal growth.
And you mentioned the Rotary with the cherry blossoms. How's everything? This is kind of on a side note because I think last time we spoke it was about Rotary. How's everything at Rotary?
Everything's fine.
Great.
Very active organization, service projects all the time. So very heavily volunteered into the community in many respects. Just finished the spelling bee up at Savona Campbell. That's run by Rotary every year.
Yeah, and are we sending somebody from Painted Post?
We are.
Yeah.
We are. And the history of that. We have 2 national champions coming from Corning.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's absolutely astounding.
I have a really close friend who she follows the spelling bee. Everybody has hobbies, so she follows it. And I'll get a text about once a year asking, "What's in the water up there? How do you keep putting?" I said, "I'd like to say it's not about the water; it's about the elected officials." I like to tell them.
There you go. There you go.
We got to take a short break. Can you stay with us?
I can.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Do it all with Steel Battery. Power up with free extra battery deals on select Steel tools. Shop in-store and online.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Our beautiful view of historic Marcus Street in Corning, where we're broadcasting live and being joined by the Corning Mayor, Mayor Bill Boland. I wanted to ask you, because you're in a weird position. You can mark the calendar for the days left in your mayoralship.
Yeah.
How does it feel?
I have that calendar.
Do you have big red? How does it feel?
It feels right.
Yeah.
Let me put it that way.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer, both in business and civic life, that each organization has an opportunity at different points to bring in fresh ideas, fresh blood. I think that time is now, and we've got great people in the wings to carry on.
Really do.
Hopefully, what has been a reputation of growth and prosperity, but I think it's time. And personally, I'm ready. It's been a absolute privilege. My mom and dad, looking down from heaven, are proud of their son, and I'm just proud to represent this city for 8 years now.
Now, I'm not going to ask you if you'll miss it, because I don't know if I want the answer. So I'll word it this way.
Yeah.
What are you going to miss the most?
I think engaging simple things. I mean, last night I was at a ribbon cutting.
Yeah.
Keller Williams, new office opened.
The old radio station.
Absolutely. And they, by the way, they kept some of the icons on air. Yeah.
I heard. I've got to stop over and see it. They did a beautiful job with it.
Beautiful interior design work. But there's an example of where there's a community gathering to promote, somebody who is recommitted to our community, which is a special thing. New businesses are one, but some that have been here and recommit to the community, that's special. So having the opportunity to engage people, whether it be that or otherwise, that's always been something I've really enjoyed.
And one thing I think last time that we spoke, well, first of all, is it fun not to have to go get petitions signed?
Oh, yeah, but not to get too political here, but for the Democratic candidates running now, I was the petition candidate.
Yeah.
I'm the pro.
Yeah.
Not my first rodeo.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
it's not a pleasant task for anybody,
No.
but especially in the dead of winter.
Oh my goodness, this has been a tough one. And then when we do get 2 nice days, no one wants to go out because they want to enjoy it.
Go to the lake.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a tough one. But you've had a couple initiatives and we talked about it last time. I think it was just you and I when we were over at the school. I think with the sister cities. Tell us about the Board of Health's initiative, and I think this is a great idea. Wait until 8th.
Yeah, I mean, just to back up for a second, the Board of Health at the local level doesn't have a lot to do. Almost all that responsibility is at the county level.
Sure.
But we thought what we would do is hold a conversation about the perils that smartphones present to our young people and that whole culture. And one of the things we learned in studying that was that even at the kindergarten level, kids are coming in with smartphones.
Amazing.
And one of the precursor things to this initiative that we talked a little bit more about was a program that the school district, the library, and the mayor's office put together 4 meetings over at the high school to do a community book read of something called The Anxious Generation, which addresses this issue. If you take a look, this book was about, you take a look at 2010 when smartphones were introduced and the impact not only on academics but mental health. The data is irrefutable that these phones, this culture is harming our children and robbing them of their youth. And so what we want to do is get it very early. The Wait Until 8 program is a national program that basically says very simply, parents agree collectively that they will not give their kids a smartphone until 8th grade.
Wow.
And I really should stress, Frank, although the Board of Health is pursuing this, it's not a government program.
Right.
This has to be a volunteer group of parents. And the reason that they gather together is because that if your kid doesn't have a smartphone, what they're going to say, well, Johnny has, how come I can't have it?
Right.
But if you have a group of parents that are self-supportive along this idea, we can return our kids to free play, that kind of normal development process, plenty of time for smartphones when they're more mature.
And like you said, the numbers are so troubling. Kids dealing with anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and it's always been bad in schools. People have talked about it forever, but bullying. But now bullying is no longer just when the bell rings. It's international in some instances.
Absolutely.
Online, and it's 24/7.
Absolutely.
And I want to just highlight, it's waituntil8th.org. You can find out more, waituntil8th.org. This kind of ties in at the state level, not to just throw you a curveball here, but do you think Governor Hochul's initiative of the bell-to-bell cell phone ban is going to go through? Because I think that would be a wonderful idea.
Well, I discussed this with Michelle Caulfield, our superintendent of schools, and I think the education community wants to have more flexibility. For instance, something really practical that I didn't know until I had this discussion was that kids use these devices, to do something practical like handle their calendar.
Sure.
I mean, when I was growing up, I had like 2 activities. These kids are, they're going all the time, right?
Yeah.
So that's a practical use. But their policy over there is you can't have it in class, which is key. You can have it in the hallways, you can have it at lunch, but you cannot have it in the classroom. And to me, that's a nice compromise. So, and I think there will be a compromise on that.
And I think it was one of the sister cities is when I talked with her as well, and we were all in a kind of a group staying around. I thought it was really interesting when she said that at lunch or at various free time when they could use them, they weren't using them as much after it went into effect.
I thought that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Take them away from the phones, get them interacting, whether it be in the classroom with each other, and they prefer that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a place for these smartphones.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be
in the school. That's why I like the initiative that Governor Hochul put through. I hope that it goes through in the budget. I know there's going to be some back and forth, like you said, whether or not it is bell to bell or whether or not there are some free breaks. But I was really encouraged to hear that they weren't using their free time the whole time.
Absolutely. And I was talking to an educator last night, and he just said, I spend half of my time in my classroom not teaching, but telling Johnny, put your phone away, and puts his phone away, and then Harry over here or Sally over here is pulling out, and he's constantly doing that. That's not what they're paid to do.
No.
And our kids get robbed of their education because of it.
It's kind of like the old days passing a note, right?
Exactly.
And that would run amok. Well, Mr. Mayor, thanks for giving us so much time this morning. Anything else you'd like to say to the people of Corning?
No, as I leave office, it's been an absolute privilege. I think we've got great people coming in, and again, I just appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk about things.
And I don't want this to be the last time before you're out the door, okay?
Promise.
Well, all right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Tune in to our early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
Every day, Judge Maybelline presides.
She doesn't know what she wants herself.
Is another day where the law is upheld.
And I'm doing that to teach you a lesson. Now, either you're going to say you did or you didn't, or I'm going to get to know real quickly that you lied.
Justice with Judge Maybelline.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You're faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon. Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox. The Big's website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live. See, Mr. Mayor? We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We'll be reading your comments here in just a little bit, but I would love to hear your thoughts on waituntil8th.org. And we thank Corning Mayor Bill Bolin for being our guest. A couple quick New York State updates. Then we're going to get to your comments after the next break. And we still have a song from Metaphor, which we'll play before we go in to our break. The Pro-Cuomo Super PAC has already raised $2.3 million from real estate honchos. So Pro-Cuomo Super PAC, $2.3 million. And now we see a new poll coming out where Cuomo is dominating in that mayoral's race, but the Democratic Socialist, I'm going to try it here, Zohran Mamdani, has surged into second place. The reason I bring that up is just to highlight, and we're not going to have an opportunity to read this whole thing, but at the New York Post this morning, Elaine Healy has written an op-ed. And the op-ed says, "I'm a nursing home doctor. Cuomo's lies deepen New York's grief." She said, "On Sunday, I wept with relatives, those who perished from COVID in New York nursing homes. 5 years after Governor Cuomo's notorious directive of March 25th, 2020, the pain I experienced as a nursing home physician taking care of sick and dying COVID patients is still raw." And she gives her experiences, also the time frame. It says here, "Let's recognize their courage and compassion as they continue their vocation of care for the elderly," meaning the nursing home workers as well as the people who lost loved ones because of that edict from the governor. "And New Yorkers, as you choose your next mayor, scrutinize the episode carefully. Andrew Cuomo's order and all the excuse making and finger pointing that has followed demonstrates the former governor's lack of preparedness, judgment, honesty, integrity, and empathy." So that's a great piece from Elaine Healy saying, "I'm a nursing home doctor. Cuomo's lies deepen New York's grief." Okay, New York lawmakers are now lining up, as we just talked to the mayor about this, behind Governor Hochul's bell-to-bell school cell phone ban. This is an important move if it is going to go through. With just days left to finalize the state budget, New York lawmakers are getting behind her signature plan to ban cell phones all school day. Now, again, I don't know why it costs $13.5 million. I don't know. It said it would be in effect even during lunch and free periods. This is an important endorsement. Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins said, "We believe that our young people in school should be focused on learning, and they do not need the distraction of the cell phones." As of around yesterday, the majority of the members are more comfortable with a bell-to-bell approach. So there is your update there. But on the other side of the coin, if we are going to talk about Kathy Hochul saying yesterday on an appearance of the David Pacman show, she made it crystal clear, quote, "We're not going to allow this mass deportation." And she made it clear that the state police will not cooperate. Quote, "We're not going to allow this mass deportation. Where we will cooperate," and I did this even under the Biden administration, "if you have a warrant or, someone's on a terrorism watch list or committing crimes in their home country or committing crimes here, that's a different category. And I will help you with those to protect everyone, whether the newly arriving New Yorkers or where they've lived here or if they've lived here their entire lives." Governor Hochul explained that she does not want this bleeding over into schools and sensitive places. So our state policy, our state law does not allow for our state police to be involved in these situations. And she described there are a few renegade counties in New York. Individual counties can sign a pact with ICE, and we have a lot of them. Some on Long Island, some in upstate New York, where there's different political views. However, she made it clear that state police, which is in her jurisdiction, will not cooperate under her watch. So Governor Hochul making it crystal clear there will not be mass deportations. Now, speaking of New York lawmakers focusing on what's really important, and that's targeting Tesla. A Democrat legislator introduced a bill to stop Tesla from selling in person to consumers in the state. That seems like a major overreach by State Senator Pat Fahey. an Albany Democrat who's championed electric vehicles, no longer championing electric vehicles. He now introduced a bill that would yank permits for Tesla's 5 in-person sales locations in New York. Other electric vehicle makers would also be allowed to compete for the permits under the legislation. Quote, no matter what we do, we've got to take this from Elon Musk. He's part of an effort to go backwards. Going to that viewer's point about always being able to flip-flop. So you're for electric vehicles, but now for political reasons, you are trying to take away the business licenses of Tesla dealers in your state. Now, protests, we've talked about this all week, protests against Tesla and Musk are planned this week across upstate New York, according to NewYorkStateOfPolitics.com. More protests are planned at Tesla auto dealerships in the coming days. It's all part of an effort to rally against Elon Musk. That's what he gets for having the audacity to work with the Trump administration. The anti-Elon Musk and anti-government movement is called anti-government movement. That's a weird way of wording that, but okay. It's called Tesla Takedown. Protests are being planned around the globe. A protest is scheduled to take place at the Tesla dealership located in Henrietta on Friday afternoon. Another is scheduled to take place in Fayetteville at noon on Saturday. Now, I don't see any listed close to us. I will say to these protesters, not that they are listening to me, when you start to have different days, different times at different locations, people start to lose a little interest. This is what happens when everybody wants to be the kind of power broker. They want to be the king of these protests, but that is an update. Also, well, no, that's enough on New York State. That's enough on New York State, because I've been promising you all morning, and I am going to read your comments. Sorry, I just got talking with the mayor. Don't forget, again, the NYSEG Community Connection, the public forum, is today at the Big Flats American Legion from 4 to 7 p.m. Customers can meet with NYSEG representatives on a first-come, first-served basis. If you do attend, I would love to hear from you. I would love to know how it went. If you felt that it was helpful, I would appreciate that. Okay. How am I doing? I'm doing good on time because I took a couple extra breaks, but we will be... Let me see. I think I'm doing good. We've been talking the last week about Senator Chuck Schumer losing confidence from his party for him to be in this leadership position. The New York Times even put out an opinion piece from Maria Garza, who was the editor's editor of the Los Angeles Times. Now, she resigned in September of 2024 from the Los Angeles Times. And she writes in the New York Times, I resigned as an act of principle. So should Senator Schumer. It's not easy giving up a good gig. I would know. And then she goes and gives her whole story. Basically, it was because the editorial board was blocked from endorsing Kamala Harris, and that was a bridge too far for her. And I think there's a very good point when that was happening, when Bezos and others were saying, we're not going to do these political endorsements anymore because it makes us look biased. And it's about the perception that people have. And of course, they're always going to vote or endorse Harris. They're not going to ever endorse Trump. So they said no more endorsements. So she said, no, I want to endorse Harris, so I'm out. But that's not what this is all about. Then she talks about what Schumer did, which was supporting that continuing resolution. The frustration directed at New York's senior senator, including from notable voices in the kind of political class, that he lost Jon Stewart. And it suggests that it's more than just one vote. It could wind up being the final straw for Democrats, exasperated by their party's faltering response to the chaos unleashed by President Trump and Elon Musk since January. They're tired of their leaders bringing a knife to a nuclear war. The public overall isn't much happier. As pressure for him to resign from leadership builds, Mr. Schumer said this week that he's not stepping down. Maybe he's feeling a bit the way President Biden did last summer. So she's saying it's akin to what happened with Biden. We have been saying that for weeks. Maybe she listens to the program, watches the program. But it does seem very reminiscent of what happened to Biden in the summer. Now, at some level, he must understand that the passive strategy he laid out in recent New York Times Magazine's interview Biding time until Mr. Trump's popularity dips below 40% isn't reassuring to Americans worried that there might not even be free and fair elections the next time around. So far, Mr. Schumer is digging in, and it's understandable. Too often in our history, leaders cling to power even after it's clear their time has passed or they become ineffective. I'm not going to read all examples of this. I don't think that's important. But Mr. Schumer recently argued in a Times Opinion guest essay that his decision to vote for the spending bill was the better of only bad options. Give him credit for offering an explanation. But to many, his decision reflects a way of doing business that doesn't meet the moment. It'd be edifying to see Mr. Schumer set an example for his party and for the nation by stepping down and making way for new leadership instead of clinging to power. That coming from the New York Times, publishing that op-ed. So then Politico, we see yesterday, the timing is impeccable, coming out late yesterday when this op-ed came out early yesterday. Chuck Schumer's emergency media tour. One of the most enduring lines in American politics, it's kind of cliche at this point, is that the most dangerous place in Washington is between Chuck Schumer and a television camera. Then it goes on and gives his whole schedule, and it's but it says Schumer has continued to be a presence on television lately, only with a different end game. He's undertaken a wide-ranging media tour in the week since he engaged his party's grassroots by voting for a continuing resolution. Because the success or failure on this media tour could determine his fate as Democratic Senate leader. And if you recall, on I think it was Haynes' show on MSNBC, he expected to go there, be treated with a friendly welcome, as you would as a Democrat leader on MSNBC, and he was not. Haynes showing him videos of all the people who were kind of had the long knives out for him. Most importantly so, probably Nancy Pelosi. In an effort to deal with the intense blowback to his vote and the calls for him to step down from his post, the New York Democrat has been making his case across television networks, appearing on cable news, Sunday shows, and even The View to defend his decision. As one former Schumer aide said, this is based on anonymity, said, "It reminded me of those old days where the idea was just get him on everywhere you possibly can," because he had this sort of conviction that if he could just explain what he's thinking or what he's doing, people would be persuaded. So he's making his emergency media tour. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. Read your comments. But before that, let's do this. We've got coming up on Saturday the performance by the Mark Twain Chorus, the Crystal Chords, and more at Horseheads High School, 401 Fletcher Street in Horseheads. Doors open at 6:30. 7 o'clock is the performance. Well, we had a great chat with Joe Barlow earlier this week, and we heard a wonderful song from the staff meeting quartet. So Joe was kind enough to drop off a performance that they made specifically for us from the Crystal Chords. Here is Metaphor.
A doomba 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 doomba, don't want a four-leaf clover, don't want an old horseshoe, baby, now I want your kiss, 'cause I just can't miss with a good luck charm like you. Come on and be my little good luck charm, you sweet delight. I want a good luck charm hanging on my arm to have, to hold tonight, just wanna hold it tonight. No silver dollar rabbits for hanging on a string, because the happiness in your warm caress no rabbit's foot can bring. Come on and be my little good luck charm, you sweet delight. I want a good luck charm hanging on my arm to have, to hold tonight, hold tonight. Come on and be my little good luck charm, my sweet delight. I need a good luck charm, you gotta know. I need a good luck charm, be my little good luck charm. What a sweet delight, be my little good luck charm to have.
Hard water makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.
Tune in to our early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Every Judge Mathis presides.
Don't you ever form your mouth to talk to me like that. What's wrong with you?
Is another day when someone gets what they deserve.
I'll throw you out my courtroom talking crazy like that.
Mathis Court with Judge Mathis.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription.
The Frankly Speaking roof cam, crystal blue skies there, as we broadcast live. Oh, by the way, brought to you by Boss Security and Horses. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you again to Metaphor for that great song. And again, that performance coming up on Saturday. Do not miss it. We've got a lot of comments to go through. Let's get right to them. It shouldn't surprise people of baby boomers leaning left. They are failed hippies. If the government hadn't gotten involved, Woodstock would have been a tragedy. The government airlifted in food and supplies to avoid that tragedy. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Nothing like Benghazi or Afghanistan where Muppets were silent, or even Hillary's use of her own private email to distribute classified material, or the then after destruction of it. Or I would also add, if you're I believe you're in reference to the media's coverage, the Hunter Biden laptop, which NPR is now admitting, as it looks like they're going to have some funding cuts that they should have reported on it earlier. We may get to that in a little bit. But the viewer continues, the hypocrisy and double standards are nothing short of laughable. Thank you very much. Mark writes in, what the Democrats are trying to do is ruin Tesla in hopes of Musk leaving Trump's team. Yes, they are putting on the pressure campaign. That is sure. I saw that yesterday a person on a four-wheeler was ramming one of those mini four-wheelers, ramming parked Teslas in what they're calling a chaotic spree. The 33-year-old allegedly spotted the electric vehicle sitting in the parking lot of a Golden Palace Chinese buffet while its owner was having lunch inside, and they loaded back. Mr. Cox loaded back and rammed his vehicle head into the side of the red Tesla. So yes, it has led to destruction. Molotov cocktails, we've heard a lot about that. They are trying to scare Musk, and that's what's really so impressive about Musk standing strong against this attack campaign, and not obviously making any money off of what he's doing, just doing what he believes to be right, which is to cut. All right, comment from a different viewer. Just like you said, Goldberg, meaning this is in reference to the Atlantic editor, could have handled it differently. Yes, I think there's a better way to handle that scenario than to release national secrets just to get Trump. Because if they're national secrets, if they're classified secrets that could help our national security, as the media is portraying them as, if it's so detrimental to our national security, then why are you the ones leaking it? Because essentially it wasn't Hegseth, wasn't Waltz leaking the information. And there's a lot of red flags. There's got to be a lot of questions to it, but it was them adding someone inappropriate onto the chat. And how, as Miranda Devine said, how is it one of the most rabidly anti-Trump reporters out there? There's too many questions that I think conservatives are asking themselves today. Trump supporters are asking themselves today. Too many coincidences. There are no coincidences in Washington. Just too many red flags there. Is there someone trying to be a fly in the ointment and be one of those? And I think Politico reported, it's based on anonymous sources, that Trump, there's a lot of suspicion on Waltz now, because of anger and suspicion, because why did he have Goldberg's number to begin with. All right, comment from a different viewer. I like the idea of wait until 8. Great job, Mayor Boland. Yes, that wait until 8, meaning that you do not give your children a smartphone until 8th grade. There will be a lot of pushback. That website has some resources there to help you along with that. All right, comment from a different viewer regarding Hochul's comments regarding ICE. As far as I know, ICE was going after the criminals that Hochul referred to, and not a mass eviction of them. Yes, that's how they try to muddy the water, to confuse people to not understand that what ICE is doing is going after the hardened criminals. But continuing. So in this sense, Hochul is not only in agreement with Trump, but has shown yet another example of the Democrats' willingness to flip-flop for political gain. And Hochul is notorious for that. All right, comment from a different viewer. Frank, it's not NYSEG that's causing the high rates. It's the government, between the federal government and the state. They're doing away with what they did. They did away with cheap power. You can't negotiate your price anymore. Yeah, a lot of the mandates coming from Hochul, a lot of the green energy projects or proposals, law. Look at, for instance, the Climate Change Superfund, $75 billion on fossil fuel companies. You don't think that's going to cost us in the long run? Carl Hastie even said it himself until he allowed the vote on it. So yes, I would agree with you. Well, I would say NYSEG is not pure as the fresh driven snow in this, but I do think it does need to be mentioned that a lot of it has to do with especially state laws. When it comes to green energy and global warming and all that, and what they've done to increase the costs. But that is in reference to NYSEG's meeting tonight, that public forum. It is at the Big Flats American Legion, and it's from 4 to 7. So if you attend, I would love to hear from you. I've got some other comments coming in. We'll get to those in just a little bit. I'm doing just fine on time, so let's hunker down. Now, the New York Post editorial board, in reference to some recent attacks on Tesla and what we were talking about earlier, they write that it's coming up on 5 months since their epic defeat last November. And Democrats from New York to Texas to California are only getting nuttier. This is how the New York Post editorial board puts it, and I'd like to hear your take on it. Start in New York City, where city councilman and comptroller hopeful Justin Brannan wants to divest city pensions of Tesla stock. Not because it's a bad investment, it's up more than 22,000% all time, though it is down as of late. But because Elon Musk is, quote, deadly for democracy. In other words, never mind the retired cop or teacher seeing good returns and or the taxpayer who'll have to make good if the fund falls short. Never mind the green car movement, the Tesla supercharged. Elon Musk is bad. And that's all that matters. Just like that state senator who wants to ban Tesla dealerships in the state. Never mind the tax revenue that would cost us, but I'll continue. This freak show, lefty posturing, instead of delivering for normal people, is precisely what voters have revealed they don't want. This again goes back to the point we asked since November, will they do any soul searching? The answer's been no. Over on the other coast, Representative Maxine Waters, oblivious to how her party took an absolute drubbing over its catastrophic border policies, recently blathered at an anti-Trump rally that the president should deport his wife, Melania. Never mind how insulting that is, how rude that is. But she apparently meant the bizarre statement as a knock on Donald Trump for being a critic of birthright citizenship. Yeah, all Waters managed to do was prove she understands neither birthright citizenship, Melania was born in Slovenia to Slovenian parents, nor what's happening in American politics. Voters literally just showed loud and clear that they are willing to dump an incumbent president and align members of Congress over border failures. And this senile attempt at trolling is the response. Saving the worst for last, welcome rising Democrat star Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas, who we mentioned on yesterday's program. She called Governor Greg Abbott Governor Hot Wheels as a dig this week, making fun of him for being in a wheelchair. Though she later tried to pretend that she didn't. She was saying it had something to do about the planes, trains, and automobiles, because we all know about the wheels on planes. Anyway, and automobiles, when it comes to the deportation process. Even The View, of all places, criticized her yesterday for those comments, saying it's never right to pick on someone that's disabled. Now, of course, they also use that as a way to bash Trump for the insults he said in the past, but I'll continue. that she outed herself as an ableist at a human rights campaign gala is the cherry on this Sunday. But she also outed herself as yet another Democrat totally divorced from political reality. Does she really think that even Abbott's critics will take up a dumb slur as a rallying cry? The Democrats, this is good news, they say, in one way. These lunatics refuse to learn the lessons of November, and it means that they'll likely be gone all the more quickly in 2026, and even less able to slam everyday Americans with their nutso beliefs. That's the New York Post. Now, Isaac Shore, as we were talking about Chuck Schumer, asking the question, in the Democrats, is the Democrat Party headed for a looming civil war? In the last few days, we've heard that sounded like the opening salvos of a Democratic Party civil war. After losing 2 of the last 3 presidential elections to Donald Trump, self-reflection is sorely needed, and some are at least feigning an interest in such an effort, as we've seen from Gavin Newsom's podcast, even though he's completely flip-flopping to that viewer's point, but he's trying to make himself look more moderate, more even conservative at times, and that's because he has a very liberal agenda in California, but he wants to run for president in 2026, so he has to present himself as something he isn't. Now, in the Senate, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer rejected calls from his left flank to shut down the federal government rather than let a Republican-backed funding bill pass. And across the country, swing state lawmakers like Michigan's Senator Elise Slotkin are trying to tell constituents that the hysterical far-left approach to fighting Trump just hasn't worked. What have they actually done, Slotkin asked, after voters implored her to resist, like we see with Bernie Sanders and AOC. Now, AOC, Bernie Sanders, there's a piece here saying what is their mega rallies really about, that they're striking a chord. But it's for those that want to see a fight that really, I think, is lacking in knowledge of how Washington works, almost lacking in knowledge of not understanding what happens when you're not in power. I mean, it's just the nature of the business, but I don't think many of the people demanding this resist understand how Washington works. And I don't mean the deep state and that kind of Washington. I'm saying the actual rules and procedures and what happens when your party is out of power. We see it here in New York State, of course, with Albany having one party control on the other side of the coin, which is that we get a lot of liberal policies. When you have conservatives in charge, as we see in Washington, you're going to get conservative policies. But I think many of the people that are quote unquote resisting don't understand that very basic principle. Meanwhile, Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez are crisscrossing the country to expound a very different explanation of the Democrats' woes and to promote a very different corrective. Sanders had harsh words for the Democrats this month, calling the party heavily dominated by the billionaire class, run by consultants who are way out of touch with reality. The Democratic Party has virtually no grassroots support, he declared. AOC, too, slammed her party at a Las Vegas rally last week. Quote, "We need a Democrat Party that fights harder for us." So which is it? Do Democrats need to lurch even further to the left in the name of fighting Trump, or is that what's consigned them to their unenviable position? I think this constant fighting Trump, like we saw in 2017 at the beginning of his presidency of the first term, I think is what very much led to his resurgence. So is there, as we've been saying on the program, is there now a civil war between the Fetterman Democrats and the AOC Democrats? Now it says available evidence suggests it's the latter, meaning it is this fighting Trump wing of the party is what has them in the unenviable position that they are in now. That hasn't changed. It says here, let me continue. Today's Democrat Party is built on the proposition that it stands on the right side of history, pushing humanity towards progress while battling backward, bigoted opponents. For a long time, the messaging has served as a powerful recruitment tool, particularly for younger, idealistic Americans searching for meaning, and for an easier path to elite, progressive-dominated political, media, and academic circles. But now we see the drawbacks to the smug self-conception. Over the long term, it has spawned a radicalization that first offended the sensibilities of the median voter, then pushed them into the arms of a pugilistic champion, Trump. Worse yet, the nature of the Democrats' messaging makes it nearly impossible for them to walk back any of their unpopular ideas. They were on the right side of history, they declared, when they manufactured a crisis at the southern border. They're on the right side of history when they insisted, or when they waged a holy war on fossil fuels. They were on the right side of history when they proposed a massive wealth transfer to the voter base in the form of student loan forgiveness programs and so on and so forth. To propose moderation now is to betray a righteous cause and to shatter the carefully cultivated self-image that provides meaning to so many in the Democrat activist class. That's why the mainstream Biden campaign gave way to the militant leftist Biden administration. That is why the likes of Jasmine Crockett and not Slotkin or John Fetterman is being deemed the future of the party, meaning Jasmine Crockett. And if you parse the moderates' words carefully, you'll find that there isn't an ideological objection to the progressives' vision, but a tactical one. Slotkin saying, my district is very different than Alexandria's district, after belittling AOC's lack of anti-Trump accomplishments. So I don't fault her for doing what she thinks is right for them. Schumer, for his part, has lashed out at fellow Democrats like Nancy Pelosi, only to cling to his personal power, not to set his party on a fresh course. So if that much-anticipated Democrat civil war breaks out at all, there's no question about who will prevail. One side has already laid down their arms. There we go. We got some comments coming in. We got to take our last break. Stay with us. This is, get your last-minute comments in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're wrapping up today's edition. Let's go to some viewer comments. Ken writes in, Frank, I'm all for Cuomo becoming the mayor of New York City, as long as they rename it Demville. It succeeds from the rest of New York to become a non-voting territory of the U.S. and isn't given any taxpayer dollars. Okay, there's Ken's list of demands. For Cuomo to be mayor. Thank you, Ken. Comment from a different viewer. The quartet did a nice job on their song. Yes, they sure did. Thank you to Metaphor for sending that in to promote Saturday's concert with performance with Crystal Chords and Mark Twain Chorus. Hey, because we give all sides of the issue here on Frankly Speaking, I think the media is making this a very big deal, and you'll understand why. Democrats have been lost in the wilderness since Trump's victory. But Tuesday's special election, shocker, in Pennsylvania, could it be a harbinger? Yes, an area in Lancaster County, which went for Trump last year by 16 points. Democrats flipped a state Senate seat that the GOP had occupied for decades. So a state Senate seat is now a harbinger of national elections, and that is perhaps the most important election to ever occur if you focus on the media. Hey, quickly, because I had promised that I would mention this. NPR head Catherine Mayer finally admits that the outlet failed to cover the Hunter Biden laptop story more aggressively or sooner. I do want to say that NPR acknowledges we were mistaken in failing to cover the Hunter Biden laptop story more aggressively or sooner. We know that no one wanted to cover that because it was right before the election. Some have said that if you point to that and the lack of coverage of it really made the difference in the 2020 election. The reason why she's now admitting it, because Doge's next target NPR and PBS. This has long been championed by conservatives. The tax-paying dollars should not go to these outlets. PBS making a fortune through donations and through things like Sesame Street, but still getting a lot of money from taxpayers. President Donald Trump's administration launched a war on public media. His allies in Congress are eager to carry the banner. NPR's CEO and President Catherine Mayer and PBS CEO and President Paula Kerger are set to appear, or they appeared yesterday in front of the House Oversight Subcommittee. That's where that reference came to. This is going to get very interesting. We'll see exactly where it leads to, but Doge is on the scene. They also said during this hearing, Maurer, who previously led Wikipedia and assumed the NPR leadership role just last year, was persistently questioned about her personal views in prior social media posts. Among those was a tweet in which she labeled President Trump a racist and sociopath during the 2020 presidential campaign. Confronted directly by Representative Tim Burkett about those past comments, Maurer conceded, "I regret them today." I bet you do. She further admitted that NPR's news team has work to do regarding the organization's provision of balanced and trustworthy journalism. Because I don't know if you've ever listened to them, extremely, extremely biased. They have been known for that bias. They're kind of the poster child for media bias. But keep in mind, you're paying for it. You're paying, and not because you're donating to viewers like you. No, it's because your tax dollars are going to it. Maurer admitted our current editorial leadership thinks that was a mistake, not covering the Hunter Biden laptop story. They were reluctant to investigate. They didn't want to bring this up at the time because of the timing. Now, NPR receives less than 1% of its annual budget directly from federal government grants, though its member stations depend heavily on public funding. While larger NPR stations typically receive 10 to 15% of their budget from CPB, smaller and rural stations can rely up to 30% or more. If you've ever been to an NPR station or PBS station, they have the best equipment. PBS itself obtains about 16% of its funding directly from federal sources, though most federal dollars go directly to local member stations. The rest of PBS's budget comes from private donations. We are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. I have no problem if you want to donate to PBS or NPR, but I don't, and my tax dollars shouldn't go in that direction. One last comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Fred. If John Fetterman were to upgrade his wardrobe, then he could become a major leader in his party. The others are looking a little bit crazy by comparison. I'm not sure. I know it's been deemed childish, this idea that he won't dress up. I know. But I don't know if he wants a future like that in the party. I don't know if he's a leadership kind of guy. But that does it for us today. Thank you to Mayor Bill Bolin for being on the program this morning, coming into the studio. And I also want to thank Metaphor for sending in that song. Don't forget, tomorrow, fan favorite, former Congressman and current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski will be our guest. So join us every weekday morning starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking. Only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning bright and early. I look forward to it already.
I invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.